picture this. You're at the start of a rugged, maybe a 5-mile mountain trailhead. And standing right there in front of you is a majestic Great Dane.
Oh, yeah. Head held high, chest puffed out.
Exactly. Just radiating this absolute aura of athleticism. You look at this, long, confident stride just waiting to happen, and you'd naturally think, well, this dog is an absolute machine. Like, we are going to conquer this mountain.
Right. It's a very compelling image. I mean, you see that sheer size, and you just immediately equate it with endurance and power. We're culturally conditioned to view it as this simple, binary, big dog, big energy, big hike.
But here's the secret. That same Great Dane has spent basically the entire last week lounging on a smooth hardwood floor.
Right.
His nails are a little too long. His paw pads are soft as velvet because, well, they haven't touched anything rougher than a living room rug.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
And the weather today, it's a bit warmer than the forecast actually predicted. The trail has all these loose stones, some steep climbs, and basically barely a patch of shade anywhere.
But the thing is, none of those red flags are going to show up in the first 10 minutes.
Oh, of course not.
Right. He's going to be pulling ahead, tail up, seemingly having the absolute time of his life. And that's largely because his instinct is just to stay with his pack, to please you.
And that brings us to the mission of our deep dive today. We are going to dismantle the athletic illusion of giant dog breeds.
It's so necessary.
It really is. We've got this fascinating stack of research and veterinary insights in front of us, and we are going to explore the actual science of their physical conditioning, the hidden dangers built directly into your everyday environment, and really how to properly interpret what a giant breed's body is actually telling you.
Because it's usually not what we think.
Right. Because that dog on the trail, within 20 minutes, his stride is going to shorten. He's going to drop behind you entirely exhausted. And tomorrow morning, he is going to be incredibly stiff.
Yeah. Size and enthusiasm can completely mask poor conditioning, fatigue, and honestly serious joint strain. Like, a dog's willingness to keep walking does not mean their body is biologically prepared for the physical toll of that activity.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand why that Great Dane failed so quickly on the trail, we really have to look at how these massive bodies are built from the ground up. I mean, looking big is actually a biological track.
A huge track.
Right, because if I'm looking at a 1-year-old giant breed, they look fully grown, they look solid, but the sources are warning that beneath the surface, their bones are still remarkably immature.
Yeah, they are essentially walking on a framework that is, well, it's still under construction.
Wow.
Let's look at their growth plates.
Yeah.
These are areas of soft, developing cartilage located at the ends of long bones in a dog's legs. Now, in a smaller breed, those soft plates calcify and they harden into solid, dense bone relatively quickly.
But not for the giants.
Exactly. Giant breeds remain physically immature for a much longer time. Those growth plates can stay open and highly vulnerable well past their first birthday.
So when owners look at their massive 1-year-old dog, they assume the skeleton is made of steel, but they are actually putting pressure on soft clay.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and the muscles haven't fully caught up to the skeletal growth yet, and their coordination is genuinely still a total work in progress.
The term the sources use here is the adolescent trap.
The adolescent trap.
Right. The dog hits full height and weight.
Yeah.
And as an owner, your instinct is to say, all right, you're a big adult dog now. Let's spike your exercise to burn off all this crazy adolescent energy.
Which makes sense intuitively.
It does. But forcing a massive frame into heavy endurance while those growth plates are still soft cartilage, it causes real, lasting orthopedic damage. You think you're conditioning an athlete, but you're actually breaking down immature joints.
But wait, if I'm a new owner, staring at a wildly energetic puppy, having a rigid formula, like, 5 minutes of exercise per month of age, that feels like a necessary safety net.
Right. It gives you a mathematical boundary so you aren't just blindly guessing how much to walk them. Isn't a clear formula safer?
What's fascinating here is that those rigid mathematical formulas actually create a dangerous false sense of confidence.
Really?
Yeah. When you rely on a generalized math equation, you immediately start ignoring the critical physical variables staring you right in the face. I mean, a formula doesn't know your individual puppy's body condition. It doesn't factor in the ambient temperature or, the incline of the surface they're walking on, or even how much sleep they got the day before.
Right. So we are basically substituting a generic internet rule for active daily observation of the actual animal in front of us. Exactly. Now, puppies absolutely need movement for coordination. confidence, balance. Free movement in a safe space is great. They can play, stop when they are tired, and just regulate their own bodies. But they need absolutely zero forced endurance.
Okay, and by forced endurance, we're talking about the activities where the dog doesn't get to choose their own pace, right? Like jogging next to a human or running alongside a bicycle.
Or those endless games of fetch.
Oh, yeah, where they are sprinting back and forth to bring a ball back because their prey drive just totally overrides their physical exhaustion.
Right.
We are putting repetitive, high-impact stress on those unfinished cartilage plates.
Exactly. And once we remove forced endurance and repetitive high-impact stress from the equation, well, we have to fundamentally redefine what a workout actually looks like for a giant breed.
Right, because if I can't just take a 150-pound dog on a 5-mile jog to burn off their breakfast, fulfilling their daily needs requires a completely different strategy.
It really does.
And the sources point out that consistency is infinitely superior to, like, weekend warrior outings. A Great Dane getting steady, moderate, low-impact activity every single day is in far better condition than a dog who lounges all week and is suddenly dragged up a mountain on a Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. And running is generally just off the table entirely.
Really? Entirely?
Yeah, I mean, a Great Dane is not a working line herding dog bred to patrol hundreds of acres a day. A fully mature, heavily conditioned adult might tolerate some light, very controlled jogging, but their biological architecture is simply not designed for sustained, high-mileage running.
Okay, so that elevates the standard daily walk into something incredibly important, but the sources place an immense value specifically on loose-leash walking and sniffing.
Yes, the sniffing is huge.
It's like, think about it like this. Taking a giant breed on a fast, nonstop heel position walk is kind of like you running on a treadmill while staring at a blank wall. Sure, you burn some calories, but you're bored out of your mind.
Right, that is purely physical exertion with zero mental stimulation.
But letting them do what the veterinary behaviorists call a sniffari, which is just a slower walk where they are allowed to stop, deeply investigate bushes, and process all those layers of sense. That's like you navigating a complex, high-stakes escape room. It exhausts the brain in a highly satisfying way.
That's a perfect analogy, because sniffing requires an astonishing amount of cognitive energy for a dog.
It does?
Oh, yeah. Their olfactory bulb processes vast amounts of rich, complex data about their environment, like who was there, what they ate, how long ago they passed by. Focusing on all that data takes massive physical brain power.
Wow.
Behaviorally, a slower walk, heavily focused on sniffing, produces a much calmer, more settled dog at home than an hour of high-intensity, fast-paced marching. Mental exercise, whether it's scent games, a sniffari, or just simple pattern training, it tires a dog's brain without putting any wear and tear on their joints.
Eventually, though, owners are going to want to take that dog out of the neighborhood and into the wilderness, right?
Naturally, yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because the stakes for a massive dog out in nature are incredibly high. When you take a giant breed on a trail, you have to actively factor in elevation changes, the temperature, the availability of shade, and the condition of their paws.
Which most people just don't do.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
We tend to view our dogs as these rugged, invincible outdoor companions, but we completely forget the sheer logistics of a wilderness injury. The reality check in this research is brutal. If a dog tears a ligament or suffers heat exhaustion 3 miles deep in the woods, you cannot carry a Great Dane out.
No. You are entirely stranded with a giant, immobile animal.
That is terrifying to think about.
It is. And that single sobering fact should dictate every trail you choose, the surface of that trail, and every distance you commit to. You have to design the outing around the worst-case scenario.
Swimming is another area where our assumptions just completely fail us. You see a massive dog with a huge chest and think, oh, they'd be a natural motorboat in the water. But the physics of their bodies actually work against them.
Yeah, a lot of giant breeds are surprisingly anxious in the water because they are not naturally buoyant.
Interesting.
That massive, heavy chest sits very low in the water. If you want to introduce them to swimming, you absolutely should use a canine life jacket to support that front heavy mass, and you have to be highly aware of cold water, hidden currents, and slippery banks.
Because getting them out is the hard part.
Exactly. Getting a panicked, waterlogged, 150-pound dog up a steep, muddy riverbank is a highly dangerous scenario for both the dog and the owner.
Okay, so even standard outdoor play, like fetch, carries hidden physics problems for a giant dog. We mentioned avoiding it with puppies, but even for fully grown adults, the sources warn against repetitive high-jumping sharp turns and endless ball chasing. It comes down to the sheer force of mass times acceleration.
Yeah, physics always wins. Every time a giant dog sprints after a ball and does a hard sliding stop to grab it, the kinetic energy of their body weight puts incredible shearing force on the soft tissues of their shoulders and knees. Right, they're essentially acting as their own brake pads. Over time, that micro-trauma adds up to significant joint disease. So, short play sessions with natural pauses are acceptable, but thoughtless, endless throwing is an orthopedic disaster waiting to happen.
If unpredictable environments and sudden stops are the enemy, public dog parks sound like an absolute nightmare.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, and the sources strongly discourage them for giant breeds. If a dog park is essentially a chaotic physics experiment with totally unpredictable variables, it sounds like our only safe option is acting as curators. Like setting up one-on-one play dates where we can actually control the environment and hit pause if things get too intense.
Curation is really the only way to ensure safe play. Uncontrolled collisions at that scale are disastrous.
I can imagine.
I mean, a friendly, goofy Great Dane can literally crush a small dog by mistake.
Mm.
Or, on the flip side, a Dane can get severely injured by a mismatched play style from another large, overly aroused dog.
So what should we be looking for?
You have to observe their body language during structured play with known compatible dogs. You are looking for loose, bouncy, mirrored movement. You want to see natural pauses where both dogs sort of shake off and take a breather.
Right, checking in with each other.
Exactly. If you see repeated pinning, cornering, or just an inability to self-regulate and take a break, you have to step in and end the session.
We focus so much on the dangers of a hiking trail or a dog park, but reading through these veterinary insights, a Great Dane's physical resilience is tested the hardest right inside your own living room.
Absolutely.
The environment they live in dictates their joint health just as much as their exercise routine does. A house built for a human is basically an obstacle course for a giant breed.
This raises an important question, though, about how we adapt our homes. Because smooth hardwood or tile floors are a major daily hazard for a long-limbed dog with a very high center of mass.
It's like a human trying to live their entire daily life, cooking, relaxing, walking to the bathroom, all while wearing ice skates on a freshly Zambonied hockey rink.
Yes, that analogy perfectly captures what it feels like to the musculature.
It's just constant tension.
Exactly. Smooth floors force them into a constantly widened stance just to find stability. They hesitate, they slip. There is a constant, low-level physical stress and microtension in their muscles just trying to stay upright as they walk to their water bowl.
Over years, that microtension has to completely alter their posture and gait.
It absolutely does. Non-slip surfaces are practically mandatory.
Yeah.
Area rugs with heavy grips, runners down the hallways, things like that.
The sources also point out the necessity of floor-level beds, so they aren't repeatedly jumping off high human mattresses
Yeah.
and using sturdy car ramps. Like, a Great Dane should never be lunging out of a high SUV onto the pavement.
Never.
And if flat, slippery surfaces cause that much microtension because of their high center of gravity, navigating a vertical staircase has to be a completely different biomechanical nightmare.
Well, stairs aren't inherently evil, provided the dog has the functional core muscle to navigate them safely.
Oh.
Yeah, a normal staircase won't single-handedly destroy a healthy adult dog's joints. The danger is uncontrolled racing up and down those stairs, especially with an uncoordinated puppy.
Right, taking them 3 at a time.
Exactly. That sudden twisting momentum on an incline is when acute injuries happen. Functional muscle, which is built through steady, controlled inclines and stable movement, is critical, so the dog has the core strength to navigate our unnatural human environment safely.
Another massive indoor hazard tied to their daily routine is the link between exercise and nutrition, specifically GDV, which is commonly known as bloat.
Yeah, that's a scary one.
We hear the term tossed around constantly with large breeds, but the mechanics of what is actually happening inside the dog's body are just terrifying.
It's a catastrophic medical emergency. GDV stands for gastric dilatation volvulus.
Okay, break that down for us.
What happens is the dog's stomach essentially fills with gas, or swallowed air, and dilates like a balloon. That's the dilatation part. Then, because there is so much room in a giant breed's deep chest cavity, that bloated, heavy stomach literally twists on its own axis. That's the volvulus.
Oh, wow. It acts like a twisted towel, completely cutting off its own blood supply.
Yes, it cuts off the blood supply to the stomach tissue and often drags the spleen along with it, compressing those blood vessels too. The tissue starts dying incredibly fast, toxins build up in the bloodstream, and without immediate emergency surgical intervention to untwist it, it is rapidly fatal.
Which perfectly explains the intense warnings in these sources about exercise around mealtimes. If you have a dog running around, highly aroused, gulping air, or doing heavy physical exertion with a stomach full of heavy food and water, you are creating the perfect storm for that stomach to swing like a pendulum and flip.
Precisely. And there is no magic, safe interval of time before or after a meal that mathematically guarantees a dog won't bloat, but the core guidance is absolute.
Just keep them calm.
Yes. Avoid intense excitement, heavy exertion, or stressful situations right around their large meals.
We also can't talk about environmental hazards without talking about the weather. Great Danes overheat incredibly easily because they have a massive body mass that absorbs and retains heat. The early warnings are, heavy panting, constantly seeking shade, and slowing down.
Pavement can also get scorching hot, causing severe burns to those soft paw pads we talked about earlier.
But there was a fascinating medical note from the sources. If a dog does suffer heat stroke, you never use an ice bath to cool them down.
No, absolutely not. Throwing a dangerously overheated dog into freezing water causes massive vasoconstriction.
Which means the blood vessels shrink.
Exactly. The blood vessels at the surface of the skin clamp down and shrink rapidly in response to the extreme cold. Instead of cooling the dog, this actually traps the dangerous superheated blood inside the dog's core, severely damaging their internal organs.
That is so counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense.
Right. You cool them gradually with room temperature water and fans while getting to a vet immediately. And, on the flip side of weather, their short single-layer coats offer very little protection in the cold, so they absolutely need a winter coat in freezing temperatures.
Okay, so with the indoor environment acting as a minefield and their outdoor activities requiring massive logistical planning, we have to look at the aftermath of whatever exercise they actually do get. How do we even know if an exercise routine is working?
Well, recovery is genuinely the most important concept in all of physical conditioning.
Not the workout itself?
Nope. The true test of a hike isn't whether your dog finished it with a wagging tail. They will literally run until their paws bleed to stay with their human. The true test is checking their body the next morning.
So we are looking for data in their movement, like a shortened stride, stiffness when they stand up, or a sudden reluctance to do like the 2 steps down into the kitchen. If I notice a little stiffness the next day, should I just let them rest it off, or is that immediately a red flag?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that stiffness is data. It is your dog's body explicitly telling you that you exceeded their physical threshold the day before.
You pushed too hard.
Exactly. It highlights the absolute necessity of doing warm-ups before an activity, cool-downs afterward, and incorporating true rest days into their week.
And a rest day doesn't mean just locking them in a crate, right?
No, it means engaging them with very light, low-impact mental enrichment rather than physical strain to let those tissues repair and prevent repetitive stress injuries.
This applies to senior dogs as well, obviously. The sources make it clear that senior dogs shouldn't just start moving entirely because muscle is what holds aging joints together.
Right, motion is lotion.
But the shape of the movement has to adapt, right? Like shorter, flatter, slower walks. If a senior dog suddenly slows down dramatically, that is a medical issue involving pain, heart disease, or neurology. It is never just old age.
Never.
But decoding that pain is a tough challenge for owners because Great Danes are incredibly stoic. They hide discomfort.
They do. The signs of pain are highly subtle. A dog that is suddenly slower to rise from their bed, a dog heavily panting while just resting in a cool room, or a dog that suddenly growls during routine handling. Those are flashing warning lights for hidden pain.
And if they are limping, the sources are emphatic. A limp is a symptom, it is not a diagnosis.
That's a crucial distinction.
A limp could be a torn pad, a broken toe, bone cancer, or a soft tissue tear. You cannot guess. And under no circumstances should an owner ever administer human pain medication to try and fix a limp. Many over-the-counter human medications are highly toxic to dogs and can cause fatal organ failure.
Yeah, always consult a vet. And beyond basic joint pain, there's a specific condition mentioned for giant breeds that owners need to have on their radar regarding movement, and that's Wobbler's syndrome, or cervical vertebral instability.
Right. The warning signs the sources list for wobblers are an unsteady gait, taking unusually wide or like floating steps with their front legs, or dragging their paws so you hear the nails constantly scraping the concrete. What is mechanically happening in the dog's body to cause that specific floating movement?
So Wobblers is a neurological issue, not a muscular one. The vertebrae in the dog's neck malform or degenerate, and that puts physical pressure on the spinal cord.
Oh,
Yeah. This compression disrupts the neurological signals traveling from the brain to the limbs, specifically disrupting proprioception.
proprioception.
Yeah, proprioception is basically the brain's internal map of where the feet are in space. Because the spinal cord is being squeezed, the dog literally loses track of where its paws are, resulting in those wide, floating, totally uncoordinated steps.
Oh, wow, that's why they float.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you see that, it requires immediate veterinary neurology evaluation, not just, changing their walking route.
So what does this all mean? When we look at everything we've synthesized today, from the cartilage of the adolescent trap and the biomechanical nightmare of a slippery hallway, to the physics of fetch and the subtle recovery data of a hidden limp, the core takeaway isn't about finding a magic number of minutes to walk your dog.
No, not at all.
It's about prioritizing consistency. It's about appropriate, slow conditioning that respects their skeletal development. And above all, it's about learning to read your dog's subtle recovery cues instead of attempting dramatic weekend heroics.
It really requires an entire paradigm shift in how we view these animals. I mean, if you look at the history of giant breeds, they were selectively bred centuries ago for brief, immense bursts of power to guard large estates or hunt large game.
They're sprinters.
Exactly. They were sprinters and imposing deterrents, not sustained endurance runners. Have we created a modern fitness culture that we are now unfairly projecting onto our pets? It begs the question, are we truly viewing our dogs through the biological reality of their unique architecture, or are we just forcing them to be the active lifestyle accessories we kind of wish we were ourselves?
Wow. That is a phenomenal question to ponder the next time you look at that majestic dog standing at the trailhead looking ready to conquer the world. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, watch those paws, and we'll catch you next time.